Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Hello, good Sunday evening, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into the Q2 Weekend News. I'm Dustin Klemann. President Donald Trump appeared in a friendly interview with British talk show host Piers Morgan. Meanwhile, stateside, GOP senators are asking the president to show restraint in the Russia investigation. CBS News correspondent Laura Podesta reports tonight from New York.
President Trump talked about feminism, climate change, and his policies in a sit-down interview with British journalist Piers Morgan that aired Sunday.
I think a lot of the people in your country like what I stand for. They respect what I stand for.
And to those who
don't,
I
do stand for tough borders.
I'm going to come to that now, but to those who don't, what do you say to them?
I don't care. I don't care. It's just one of those things. I don't say anything. You know why? Because I don't care.
The president taped the interview Thursday during his visit to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. Since his return, Mr. Trump has faced questions over a report that claims he wanted to fire special counsel Robert Mueller. Republican senators say Mr. Trump should stay silent on the investigation into his campaign's contacts with Russia.
I will do whatever it takes to make sure that Mr. Mueller can do his job. We're a rule of law nation before President Trump. We're going to be a rule of law nation after President Trump.
Another Republican senator, Susan Collins of Maine, said she's hoping for new laws to protect Mueller from losing his job.
To have a strengthened safeguard in the law to protect the special counsel from a firing.
The president is now preparing for Tuesday's State of the Union address. The White House says Mr. Trump will tout his tax cut and will press for military spending and an agreement on immigration. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
The president's State of the Union address will take place Tuesday here at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Speech will be shown in its entirety here on CBS KTVQ. Be sure to tune in for that. The firebrand and former sheriff David A. Clark Jr. will speak at the Yellowstone County GOP Lincoln Reagan Day dinner in March. In consistent fashion to Clark's persona, the former Milwaukee County sheriff, who became nationally known for his support of President Donald Trump on the campaign trail. The event is titled Let's Have a Ball and Build a Wall. Tickets are available for the dinner on March 9th. They range from $25 to $1,000. Congressman Greg Gianforte and Senate candidates running in 2018 will be in attendance. A Circle man is dead after he was ejected from his pickup in a crash Sunday morning. MHP says the 22-year-old was northwest of Circle when he failed to negotiate a curve. The GMC Sierra pickup slid and overturned in a ditch. He was not wearing a seatbelt. The trooper's report indicates speed and alcohol as possible factors in the crash. This is the 9th death on Montana roadways in 2018. After swastika and KKK graffiti as well as anti-LGBTQ flyers were passed out this week, Not in Our Town Billings met today saying not to stay silent and not to ignore those messages. Grace United Methodist Church painted some of the new messages this week after receiving pamphlets with messages against the LGBTQ community. A church invited Not in Our Town to a meeting called Upstanders Unite. Those invited to speak said it's important to not ignore the negative messages and to support those who have been targeted.
I'm a firm believer that Christ acts in love, but that love can take on different forms of messaging, and that love is not weak and love is not silent. And so if we choose to tolerate hate messaging, then we have to accept that that is going to open the doors to greater acts.
You can learn more on KTVQ.com. In other news tonight, deaths caused by drug overdoses are on the rise. Tonight, MTN's Morgan Davies takes a look at the rise of overdose deaths here in Montana and what law enforcement believes could be the cause of this upward trend.
It is approximately 50 times more powerful than heroin.
Fentanyl, a prescription drug mostly used to treat cancer patients in their final stages. It's now more than ever being used as a recreational drug.
Fentanyl's been present around here for a long time in various forms, but the unknown substances and unfortunately the accessibility to it really increased as of last summer.
So just how easy is it to get your hands on fentanyl? Well, I'm actually on a popular social media website and I found email addresses, different links to actually purchase
all different types of fentanyl products.
It's very tricky to determine where the fentanyl is coming from.
In 2017, Gallatin County saw 4 deaths due to fentanyl overdoses. Also last year, a large fentanyl heroin bust was made in Bozeman, linking that batch of fentanyl-laced heroin to overdoses in Butte. And that's how most opiate users come into contact with fentanyl. It's used as a cutting agent in heroin.
The proper steps to measure and to take the quality controls that a pharmacy would take or a pharmaceutical company would take is not taking. So you may take a pill that has an unknown quantity of fentanyl.
It doesn't take much to get a lethal dose of fentanyl. As you can see here, a lethal dose of heroin is about the size of a dime. The lethal dose of fentanyl is much smaller.
It's an unknown, and that's the danger of it. A very, very small amount of some kind of transdermal opioid could end up being an overdose.
There's the danger for law enforcement officers. Fentanyl is transdermal. For medical use, it was sold as a patch that patients could wear to ease pain. But for officers out in the field, coming into contact with fentanyl could be deadly.
We've done basically a department-wide training on the exposures and what to look for and how to treat other officers or potentially treat ourselves if we do become in contact with fentanyl.
All officers are now carrying Narcan.
We want to give them an extra tool to be able to be sure that they can immediately reverse those effects.
Unfortunately for law enforcement, coming in contact with the unknown is a bigger risk. These fentanyl products are no longer just coming from the pharmaceutical companies. Fentanyl is being manufactured out of the U.S. and then being shipped back.
Chances that we will come across it have increased. The potency of it, the more varieties that it comes in, the unknowns. That's the reason we had to take a precaution.
Attorney General Tim Fox recognized the increase in lethal doses of fentanyl moving around Montana. In October of 2017, he urged law enforcement to look at overdose deaths as homicides instead of accidents. On special assignment in Bozeman, Morgan Davies, MTN News.
Following the newscast, you can learn more at ktvq.com. Let's take a break before we go any further and get to weather. Brad McCrummon, we're starting to see the warmth come in to start the week.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're going to start things off Monday and Tuesday well above average for this time of year. Nice. Today really wasn't bad either as we take a look at our almanac with our first interstate ICAM and show you we saw a daytime high of 36. That was just one shy of our normal high for this time of year of 37. The overnight low fell to 16 degrees. 63 was the daytime high set back in 1967. 22 degrees below zero, the record low set back in 1951. No precipitation in the last 24 hours, but we have picked up just under 0.6 of an inch for the year, and more precipitation possible as we look towards our Tuesday and beyond. We'll have your complete forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, Brett, thank you very much. This week, negotiators were in Montreal, Canada for the 6th round of talks to renegotiate the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA. In tonight's Montana Ag Feature, MTN's Russell Nemitz shares why Montana wheat and barley farmers are paying very close attention to these ongoing talks.
Well, NAFTA has been one of the most important agreements overall for the U.S., especially in the wheat industry.
That's why producer organizations like the Montana Grain Growers Association have made the trade agreement such a high priority, and for good reason.
U.S. wheat exports into Mexico have increased 400% since we signed the NAFTA agreement. And we've also increased the amount of barley that they take in, particularly out of Montana. Mexico is Montana's #1 market for barley.
She says the trade agreement, which was signed into law in 1993, was significant then and still is.
It reduced a lot of technical barriers to trade that existed previously and just opened up that market to allow a lot of grain to flow south. A lot of the infrastructure is built for U.S. wheat to readily flow into Mexico.
Others agree. Former Montana Senator and U.S. Ambassador to China Max Baucus is co-chair of Farmers for Free Trade and says it'll not just be farmers who'll pay the price for NAFTA withdrawal.
If it were repealed, I just think it would cause a huge disruption to our national economy, and certainly for all of us who export a lot of products. It's everybody involved in agriculture. You know, it's the implement dealers, It's the elevators. It's the economy of the county. It all is tied together.
As for trade with Canada, wheat growers are at a disadvantage.
We actually have issues with our ability to ship wheat into Canada. They have what we refer to as a technical barrier to trade. Any of our wheat headed into the Canadian market is graded at feed and priced at feed, regardless of its quality. And so that's a problem that we hope to resolve within the NAFTA negotiations.
And like other trade agreements, there will be winners and losers in these NAFTA negotiations.
Agriculture is also almost always the first to be retaliated against when you get in trade wars. That's where people will add tariffs because it's easy to add tariffs. And that has a huge effect on the nation's economy and also Montana's economy.
So considering that 70% of Montana's wheat is in fact exported elsewhere around the world, it's easy to see why it's so important that agriculture has a seat at the table as the renegotiation continues regarding NAFTA. Reporting from the Erickson Farm near Broadview, Montana, I'm Russell Nemitz, MTN News. Thank you, Russell. And he says this week organizations along with the North American wheat value chain sent a letter to leaders in Canada, Mexico, and the United States stressing the importance of NAFTA to the entire North American wheat industry. Still ahead on the Q2 Sunday 10 o'clock news, a shooting in Pennsylvania kills 5. We'll have that story and more in our national headlines next. And later in sports, one Montanan gets a huge confidence boost with just 2 weeks before Olympic debut. Stay tuned.